Steady look vibe, steady look vibe, steady look fire, steady look vibe, piano, 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 piano. I finally have money. Woo! Woo! Oh my god, it didn't take long. I finally have some cash. Not a lot, but I finally have a little bit of cash. Cash money, and I'm going to tell you exactly how I earned it, exactly how you can earn it, and why it's so important that we even have money. But at the end of the day, this is only really 400 rand, 600 rand. It's not even enough to take a taxi from here to, I don't know, somewhere else. But today I finally have money, and today's a great day. And I don't have a lot. I don't think that I'm wealthy. It's just that I was gifted a beautiful shirt from my mother, and these are fake Louis Vuitton shorts, and I have 400 rand, and this is from the Chinese market. So I might look like I've got money, but actually I don't. I just have a tiny bit of cash money, which is actually a crazy little story. When I was younger, when I was 9, my dad fell in with a major court case, and his partner tried to defraud him for millions of rands from his business. And I remember that my dad always believed ideologically that it's a good idea to go on holiday. And we ended up going down to the coastline, down to the beach, seaside, just for the holiday season in December. And I remember my dad was seriously quite poor back then. He always wore this broken old leather jacket. He bought it from some retailers in some dodgy part of the world, and they actually never dried it properly. When you have a leather jacket, what happens is they dye it and they need to put tans on it, and often they put a lacquer on it, something that's shiny so that it has that patina, it develops that, but it's an unnatural patina. And what happened was, when my dad, he loved showing me this, he would take a piece of tissue, I don't have one but this, and he would rub it on his jacket, and he would see how that black brown ick would come off the jacket. But the point is that he was not flush with cash. But still, he took us on holiday. And he took us to this beautiful restaurant called Julio. And with Julio, it was a Portuguese restaurant where they would serve these bread rolls, which were absolutely delicious. You can just imagine that bread with that flour on top. They served burgers. They served all Portuguese food. And even though he didn't have much money, he still insisted that we get a dessert. Because he's a high-class man. He insisted we get a dessert. So we got our peppermint crisp special. It came with those delicious vanilla biscuits at the bottom, then a little bit of the peppermint chocolate, and then some sort of pastry, if you can say. So he did treat us. But the point was, we didn't have so much money to go to a restaurant and have coffee and a tea and an orange juice, and then afterwards go for donuts, and then go for steak, and go out and get drinks. And we didn't have so much money to be extravagant like that. Even though we always had enough, which is a blessing from God, that we always had enough, even just to have desserts or to go away on holiday. I personally didn't feel like we had so much that we could do extravagant things. Until one day, when I joined up and I started selling my second-hand items. I made a video about this. It's a South African platform, but I started selling my second-hand items, and it did start to make a little bit of cash. That cash. And I started everything behind me. I started taking these cups. I started taking this bottle. I started taking this wallet. Everything you see, all of it being sold on this online platform. And the sales started to pick up. They did well. And over time, I started to get more and more money. And having 400, 500 rand, for me, is having 400 or 500 rand disposable. Which is like earning 10,000 rand. Because after you've paid rent, food, and if you have children's school fees for normal school, maybe you left with 500 to 1,000 rand. So having that kind of money was a lot, and it bought a lot. And then I didn't have to feel like we could only get one plate of food. Daddy, why only one plate of food? And only one dessert. Now I get a pizza and a spaghetti bolognese. Follow it up with a coffee, an orange juice, and a tea. So the extravagance started to come in once I started to have even a little bit of my own money. It got so extreme. I had 300 rand left. And I went to Sandton City when we were on holiday. And when we were on holiday, this is during the December time when we were in Sandton City, I had 350 rand, but I decided I'm going to spend it all. I bought, now please forgive me, I bought a stick that you smoke. Then I had about 170 left, 100 rand on a burger, and 70 rand on a pina colada. Is it called a pina colada? I think it is called a pina colada, but it was the non-alcoholic version. It was one of these tropical cocktails. And that was all my money, spending it all. So I know what it's like, even though I don't have a lot of cash, to know what it's like to have a lot of cash in the moment. Think of a rich person. If you have 1,000,000, it means that you can easily spend 400, you can easily spend 1,000, you can spend 5,000 without even thinking. So I've felt what it is like to be a millionaire because I've had that 300, in that case, 370, 350, 400 Rand cash, and I could spend it just like that. So I remember even growing up at school, I used to love watching the kids, but in the sense of watching them go to their parents' cars. Because it's oftentimes a car. I know it's not a perfect science. Wealthy people like to maybe misrepresent, and they drive a rubbish car and wear cheap clothes. But by and large, if a guy is very wealthy, I do believe he would drive a better car. So I loved seeing which cars the kids went to. And being in the area that we're in, well, most of the cars were small. They weren't fancy. They weren't even Mercedes. They weren't even these big trucks or anything like that. They were small. The only time I ever saw something that was interesting was when it was just a black Mercedes, which is a normal car. The only thing I noticed was that it was S-Class. So is that a fancy car? I don't think, even that, maybe it's executive, but I don't think it's fancy. I never ever, not even once saw a supercar, not even once. So everyone at my school was basically middle class. And I started to notice that the kids that were in the popular group also wore Yeezys, also wore fancy shoes, also had the best fashion when it came to those civvies days that we would have at school. And the middle class, or the middle group, maybe weren't as wealthy. They didn't have Yeezys. One or two did, but not as many as the popular group. And then there were the nerds, as they call them, and those guys just wore Maxed, which is called in our country, just cheap, run-of-the-mill, plastic Chinese clothing. Which is interesting to me now that I think about it. Do you think that the popularity groups within schools are determined by how much money and the socioeconomic status of the children and of their families? I seriously hope not. And more important than how I made money, it's you there on the other side of the screen. If I make videos and no one watches, well, there's no purpose. If I make videos and I don't even record and I don't post them, there's no purpose. Because there's someone on the other side, it's you. What is your plan to make money? Don't you want to take second-hand items and tell a story like this? How you put it onto the online platform and next thing you had 300 Rand and then you were buying a stick to smoke and buying pina coladas and margaritas with your last bit of money and enjoying the high life while you still could? Don't you want to be that kind of guy? Because I think that it's awesome to finally make money. To finally feel rich. Even though it's a gift from my mom, a fake pair of shorts, Chinese market bag, and 400 Rand taxi money. Still something on the way to 1,000,000.